Hi everyone! In my map that I have created, I am looking through the problem lens of dancing the tango, singing the city. We will follow Martel's musical journey and unravel the truth behind the locations in which he chooses to sing. Through that, we will learn about the history of Buenos Aires and the memories that come to life through the lyrics of the tango. Club del Vino marks the first location in our journey through Buenos Aires. This destination is significant because this is the first time the main character, Bruno, learns about Martel, the famous tango singer of Buenos Aires. When we least expected it, he unleashed his voice. It was incredible. I was floating in midair, and when the voice fell silent, I didn't know how to detach myself from it, how to get back to Earth. Azcoenaga Street is located near the tourist attraction Recoleta Cemetery. There are many notable people of Buenos Aires whose lives are preserved through their past. In the beginning of The Tango Singer, Bruno is describing one of the many locations that Martel sang. One night he sang from the balcony of one of the hotels for furtive lovers on Azcoenaga Street, behind Recoleta Cemetery. Many couples interrupted the clamor of their passion and listened to the powerful voice infiltrating through the windows and bathing their bodies forever in a tango they'd never heard before, in a language they didn't understand, but which they recognized as if it came from a previous life. One of the witnesses told Virgili that a sheet of aurora borealis shone in an arc over the crosses and arc angles of the cemetery, and after the song, everyone there felt a guiltless peace. And here I have the pictures of what the street looks like. This is an overhead view, and then this is the cemetery itself. This is the entrance to the cemetery. The third city that we are dancing through, as we follow the path of Martel, is the Waterworks Palace, which is referenced in the book. More commonly named today is the Water Company Palace, which was built as a water pumping station in 1877 by architect Carlos Nystromer. It is still being used today as a pumping station. So the quote from the book is, One afternoon, about 2, Martel went all the way into the Waterworks Palace, where the ironwork footbridges, the valves, tanks, pipes, and columns, which 100 years before had distributed 72,000 tons of drinking water to the inhabitants of Buenos Aires, were still preserved intact. I heard he'd never sung another obscure tango there and left in a wheelchair. So it wasn't important to him to repeat the patterns of history, because history doesn't move, doesn't speak. Everything in it has already been said. He wanted rather to recover a past city that only he knew and transfigure it into the present of a city he'd take with him when he died. So this here is a picture of the Waterworks Palace, and it truly is beautiful. However, we come to find out in the book that in 1899, a 14-year-old girl's body was found in the palace. It is important for me to point this out to you as we continue dancing the tango throughout each destination. Watch for the common themes that are tied to each location in which Martel chooses to sing. Our next destination is Avenida de los Corrales. This location is where Martel sings the tango called Margarita Gauthier, written by Julio Jorge Nelson. Today, overcome, I invoke you, he sang, and the Margarita of the tango returned to the big house as if time had not passed, with her body of 24 hours earlier. Today, overcome, I invoke you, he said, and I felt that this summons was enough to make the glass on the floor vanish and the cobwebs and the dust fade away. The meaningfulness behind his lyrics capture the tragic tale of a woman named Catalina Godel, an activist during the time of dictatorship and corruption within the Argentinian government. She was found by the military and was soon kidnapped, tortured, and raped. She was left in the middle of a place called Capucha, and then decided to change her name to Margarita Langman to hide her identity. Martel was very interested in the story and worked very hard to capture all of the details. He connects the story of Margarita to his lyrics through powerful meaning and brought the history of her house to life, making the cobwebs disappear, as it says in the quote. Our next destination is Riobamba Street. This is where Bruno explains how Martel's music brings them to the past. As all of those memories start flooding back in, it seems as though the street was what it once had been, long ago. It was more like phonetic sparks, random sounds in which you could detect feelings like sorrow, desertion, lamented lost happiness, homesickness, to which only Martel's voice could give meaning. What do Brunei Ayu Peninsula mean? Because that was more or less what he sang. I felt that it wasn't just one person's past flowing through that music, but all those pasts the city had witnessed, as far back in time as you could go, to the time when it was just useless scrubland. Now we are at the Avenida Callao, which is the hotel that Bruno is living in. His frustrations grew throughout the course of the book because he had not yet met Martel and was feeling disconnected from Buenos Aires and from himself in general. He stated, I hadn't found what I'd come to find in Buenos Aires, and now I felt alien to the city as well, alien to the world, alien to myself. What was going on outside suggested a new birth, a beginning of history, or an end, and I didn't understand it. I could only think about Martel's voice, which I've never heard and might never hear. So in this quote, he's also explaining that he feels discouraged and that he hasn't really truly found the true purpose of why he is in Buenos Aires. And then, so this is near the end of the book, and he kind of feels hopeless. So when you come with me to the next city in the next place, we will come to a full circle, and he will truly identify the reason and the purpose of why he traveled in Buenos Aires, and also finally understanding why Martel chose all of the places he chose to sing and the reason behind it. Alright, so we have traveled to our last destination on our map, and that is San Cristobal. So these final quotes that I'm going to be sharing with you hold significance to my map because, like I said previously, Bruno has finally come to realization as to how Martel chose the locations to sing in, and why he was always kind of mysterious and secretive about it. So my first quote reads, And he sang, but this was before all the rest, in front of the old metal works on Vicina and San Cristobal, where thrifty, striking workers were murdered by the police during uprisings of 1919, still known as the Tragic Week. And then in a summary below this, another passage reads, The map then was simpler than I'd imagined. It didn't draw any alchemic figure or hide the name of God or repeat phrases from the Kabbalah, but followed, by chance, the itinerary crimes committed with the impunity in the city of Buenos Aires. It was a list that contained an infinite number of names, and that was what had most attracted Martel, because it served as an incantation against cruelty and injustice, which were also infinite. So in conclusion, with the problem lens being dancing the tango, singing the city, we have followed from the eyesight of Bruno, we have followed Martel, and by the end he had finally met with Martel and fully understood the meaning behind the locations in which he sang. It's important to understand that the reasoning why Martel chose the places he did was to have that connection with the history in the past, in those memories. And like the quote said, it served an incantation against cruelty and injustice. So I believe too the reason why he never recorded his voice was because he always wanted to be in that moment and recreating that history for everyone. And you really can't do that through a recording. So I just wanted to wrap that up for you guys. I really hope you enjoyed following me and dancing with me, dancing the tango and singing the city through my map of Buenos Aires. Thank you.